You're watching Good Morning Nigeria in the new year on the network service of the NTA as a prompt for our conversation, which is on fast-tracking national development through science and technology. Here's a background report by our correspondent Oyeyemi Ajay.
Science and technology is believed to be the bedrock towards development of a society. Through science and technology, countries have been able to advance their growth and development and creation of things to make life much more easier and project themselves as advanced society. A society with developed science and technology is believed to have advantages of easier life with more comfort for its citizens, as both time and money are saved. It is because science and technology opens up new perspectives of understanding as well as aid in the development of every strata of the society, especially education, health, economy, including our daily activities. Science and technology is said to be the rationale for dividing the world into developed and developing countries, as its usage and ownership cannot be underestimated. In its part, Nigeria, considered to be a developing society, is making efforts at improving science, technology and innovation by encouraging girls in the sector through the STEM initiative. However, more still needs to be done, knowing well that the deficit of investment in science and technology and absence of economic and scientific infrastructure has undermined the process of economic transformation and infrastructural growth. The consequences of the deficit has been significant and include continued reliance on the colonial model of resource extraction, largely responsible for the debilitating poverty and aid dependence trap hindering the growth of the country's economy. Some experts have also pointed at poor budgeting to the sector as a major militating factor. With about 17 agencies under the Nigerian Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, more resources are said to be invested in the sector for the country to boast of its innovative and technological capabilities with the utmost utilization of its human and capital resources. Whilst Nigeria is still lagging behind in terms of technological advancement despite its human resources, what more can Nigeria do to become a force to be reckoned with in the Committee of Nations in terms of science and technology? These are some questions guests in the studio will provide answers to shortly.
Alright, and to discuss the topic this morning here in our Abuja studio, let me first introduce His Royalty, Otis Oliver Aneji, will be Enowu II in Okija, traditional head of Obaho Okija, and former president, Nigerian Society of Engineers, and former consultant to the federal government on Ajokuta Steel Company and Alajat Steel Complex. His Royalty, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Kilian. Thank you, viewers.
Alright, and we also have in the studio Engineer Kashimali. Engineer Kashimali is former President, Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, Koren. Thank you, sir, for being here this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, and also joining the conversation from our Kaduna studio is Professor Mohammed Haruna, Executive Vice Chairman, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI. Thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
Yes, I was just a little bit scared on whether we can, have his audio. Okay, gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Well, as a matter of fact, I could say that it is this current administration in Nigeria that has ever laid emphasis on science and technology to a point where one could say, yes, something has been done in terms of prioritization of government programs and activities. But I wanted to start on this note. Let me take this scenario. In 2014, I was privileged to be in a Hebrew University in Jerusalem, where they had a 1 week of a technology show. And we are privileged to have the late Shimon Peres of Israel, who was a one-time president or the first prime minister of Israel. And we asked him a question to say, look, what is it for you as a nation when it comes to science and technology? And he just said, look, that as far as Israel is concerned, we sleep and wake up science and technology. We eat and drink science and technology. That without science and technology, Israel will not be in existence. I mean, I took it from the angle of prioritization of what a nation should be doing, from the concept of science and tech in Nigeria from the 70s, even when national was established. We don't seem to have a kind of continuity in terms of prioritizing science and tech, to be part and parcel of developmental process in the country. So I want to begin with Professor Haruna. Give us an idea of how a nation should focus attention on science and tech for national development in a nutshell, so that we can lay a good background for this conversation.
Kirian, you have made the task easier by rightly putting it correctly that the current administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is actually prioritizing science, technology, and innovation. To my knowledge, there has never been any government in Nigeria that has invested hugely and pay a lot and prioritize in terms of budget and funding of science and technology like the current administration. From your background also, you made the analysis that science, technology, and innovation is the requirement, is what is needed to fast-track development of a nation. It is, of course, the solution to all aspects of human endeavor. You can see that what nations have, the advantage, the position, the priorities, and of course the classification of nations into first world, advanced society, or advanced technologies, or the industrialized nations. They are leaders in all aspects of human endeavor, in finances, in socio-economic development, even in political stability. They have one thing in common. They invest hugely in science, technology, and innovations. A lot of nations that are in the first world order today, that are classified as advanced, they don't even have the natural resources we have in the country. They import these from different parts of the world, particularly from Africa, turn it into useful, add value to it, convert it into product, and export to other nations. Even in military, nothing give a nation leadership other than its age in science, technology, and innovation. And this costs a lot of money. It's a capital intensive. And any nation that invests hugely in that emerge victorious and is proud to have that. Commodities doesn't make a nation. Commodities, natural resources, but the ability to turn these God-given resources into useful products. If you export your products to other nations and they convert it into products and return to you, you end up be the one that is paying more. I remember that analysis has shown that in the last 2 years, we have imported more petroleum products than the totality of the crude we exported abroad. So what is this? You can say that is this a blessing or a curse if you are paying more for things that you are giving free of charge. We are glad the narrative is now being changed. Government is definitely paying priority and has commenced payment for science, technology, and innovation. And I can say we have started seeing some products that are done locally, some originally invented from the country, others are through backward integration or reverse engineering of other nations' products. So if this continue, things will be different, and Nigeria will take its rightful position in Committee of Nations by leading the continent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And let for your opening statements there, let me come back to the studio where His Royalty Engineer Igwe Otis is seated. Technology makes the world go round. Challenge into a global village. Most developed countries are moving technologically towards a higher level itself. And in Nigeria, like I said while we're having this conversation, it's not that we do not have the people that can do this. Can you tell us the state of science and technology in Nigeria at this moment and what we need to do going forward?
Thank you. I think that the story of science and technology with respect to development of Nigeria will have to go back to independence and the years after, when we started developing our industrial systems, and the government chose import substitution as a strategy for development of these industries. And what that meant was that almost everything that you need for establishing those industries, you had to bring them in. You had to import them, import machinery, import tools, import raw materials, import spare parts.
Including experts.
And certainly that would not lead to much value added. And that really explains why most of those industries just collapsed over time. And what could have been done was the establishment of a technological base, because it is the establishment of a technological base that can help you create industries by your own force. And the government about 1990 to 1991-92 realized that, and then decided to embark on the establishment of engineering infrastructures, which are the necessary systems you need to establish a technological base, so that at any time, whatever it is you want to do, you want to establish a beverage plant, you're able to make the machinery and the equipment that you use to do that. You want to establish a steel plant, you also are in a position to make the machinery and the equipment and the other things you need to establish, operate, and maintain a steel plant. The same with refinery, any other type of industries, textile, and so on and so forth. And that was what informed the establishment of NASENI, the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. And its core mandate, of course, is to establish science and engineering infrastructure program. And that they ought to do by establishing science and engineering development complexes. These complexes are supposed to make products that will feed industries. And it is the industries, the satellite industries to these complexes, that will make products that individuals like me and you would need. And a beautiful blueprint was laid out for that, because the Babangida administration, with the Minister of Science and Technology, then Professor Godwin Ezekwe, blessed memory, they now set up what they called National Engineering Infrastructures Committee, made up of about 150 engineers and other professionals. And they laid out the blueprint that the country needed to establish the technological base for you now to commence genuine sustainable industrialization. And that was approved. The government passed it. A policy was developed on that, and eventually also the law. The Enabling Act was a decree at that time, was passed. And everything was set. You had a blueprint of what to do. Some of the basic industries that are supposed to be set up, they are contained in that blueprint. You have the policy that says how you are going to go about achieving that, and you have the law. And one of the committees, subcommittees that worked on that was the Finance Committee, and was headed by a top banker at that time. I think Dr. Ibrahim, I heard or something like that. And they fashioned out, the funding source to make sure that this program has the funds to, come through. And which is that at that time they were to give 1% of the federation account. And that by year 2000, it will increase to 2% of the federation account, plus 1/4 of the turnover of companies that have a turnover above 4 million naira.
Okay.
So this was set, but somehow the government didn't begin to implement that funding aspect.
How did they derail from the original concept itself?
They just didn't provide the funds until last year.
Oh, okay, sir. Yes, I like the historical perspective that you took, for our viewers to really understand the way science and tech evolved in Nigeria. Because I know that after the setting up of Naseni, while the government did not toe the line of what the act said, it metamorphosed into Minister of Science and Tech, which was not there originally. That was how it came up. And now, Naseni now went under the Ministry of Science and Technology.
Yes.
Making it difficult for Naseni to have access to the funds that you are talking about. But today, as you said, we all have seen that the current administration has made it possible. But I want to take you on something, before we leave you, on the issue of Ajaokuta Steel Complex. That complex will have changed the history or the course of history of Nigeria technologically. All right, you mentioned the issue of having machinery and, of course, infrastructure for production. Give us an idea of what has happened to Ajaokuta in a nutshell, and what do you think can be done? Because, of course, Ajaokuta, the complexity of it is sophisticated, establishment that we had, and it's slipping out of us, in a way. So give us an idea as a former consultant to that project.
Thank you. Well, I think so far, Ajaokuta Steel Complex is perhaps the best project, the most cost-efficient project that the government has done or Nigeria has done. Because this is a complex that has 43 different factories making different products. Some, to be used captively there, and others, of course, for export. Now, the plant is really completed because there are three broad sections of that place: the blast furnace colony, the rolling mills colony, and the machine tools.
What is the functionality of them? Are they functional now? Is Ajaokuta performing to its capacity? Is Nigeria feeling the impact of Ajaokuta as a complex that is supposed to churn out, steel and all those other products that you mentioned? Is it performing optimally?
Well, it is a very important question that you asked, because you you have the issue of that some of these factories we talk about have been completed 100% since the 1980s.
Then why is it not functional?
Well, I mean, just like we cannot tell why the government did not start funding Naseni until last year. That is the reason. Some people say yes, the blast furnace is 98% completed since the 1980s. Yes, it is 98% completed, but it is not that it is impossible to complete it. The 2% remaining was just for sensitive instrumentation that you cannot install until you are ready to go. Because when you are ready, when you start the blast furnace, you have to go on a campaign for 10 years. So you cannot go and install those sensitive instruments and be waiting the way we are waiting since 1980 something.
Thank you.
So that is it. So it is the lack of will to get things going.
Okay.
You cannot complete the biggest foundry in Africa and lock it up since the 1980s.
The biggest foundry in Africa.
Yes. It has been there. You cannot have such complex machine tools workshop, even power equipment repair shop, which actually is a power equipment manufacturing place. Because it's meant to repair transformers and so on, but you can also make transformers from there. That is, if you shape it up well. You cannot have what they call a medium section structural mill. This is a kilometer-long factory with 16 bays, and if you added 2 more bays, you rail. The Nigerian Society of Engineers took it up with the government when they went to China to make loans for rail projects. And we said, look, expand this place to produce the rail here, because the rail is 60% of the cost of the rail project.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I can see you're getting
This is what I have spent all my life doing.
A rude awakening for Nigerians who are listening to you now. Let's bring in Engineer Kashim Ali. Is it all about having the will, the political will, to use what we have in Nigeria? Like you said, we went to China to get loans, to get experts for our train, and I know you were involved deeply in the Abuja rail, thing. I went to your office and I believe I saw some of the models there. What are we not getting right? In other developed countries, like he says, Shimon Peres said, the Israelites live, eat, sleep, tech, science and technology. We have everything, the raw materials, the expertise, the manpower. What are we not getting right in Nigeria?
Well, will is number one. Beyond that also is ignorance and wickedness. Let me take you again to Israel. You know, in Israel, their water supply, they pump it from a level, the pressure, the level between where the water source is and the ground level is 400 meters. And we don't have failure. So they have to have continuous pumping to have water. It's existential. Go to Dubai, Dubai that is just new, that Burj Khalifa, if there is power failure, the building will come down.
Yes.
But so they have to use innovation to do what they have done. We have the capacity to do the same in Nigeria. There are so many initiatives. When we started from the basics, the average Nigerian was always improving on whatever came to this country. If we look from way back when we were young, there is no product that Nigerians will import and not improve upon. In my village, because there are many transporters, they say the handbrake on Peugeot automobile was not effective enough. The local mechanic there will first of all bring it, remove it, and rework it before they use their cars. So this is how Nigerians have been. So, but over the years, we have looked at technology in terms of fun. We love the fun part of it. We want to see movies, screen movies. We want to communicate and talk and share pictures. Those are the things that seem to interest us. And because of that, whenever technology and innovation is mentioned, people think, those who are even in position to take decisions, think about this fun part of it. We don't know that we need it for our lives. That's the situation we have in Nigeria, unfortunately. So it's more of our, ignorance is critical because there are certain things that we do and what we do not know and we're not in the mood to even learn. I was involved in the railway development in Nigeria at a point, and incidentally it happened that I had gone to NIPS and come back before I got involved in this project. Again, as president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, as I say, it has been war. I've had this war all along, talking to government on the need. You see, even for the heck of it, how will you involve get money, invest in such a large expanse of land, develop complexes, some of which have been completed, and you never put them to use. Even if they say they are not good, since you have done, why don't you just let me use? I've done it already. Even that I've not completed, I've completed. Why can't I just use it and see whether it will be profitable or not? Why would you just sit down and get advice from nowhere and do that? So when we came, I took NIPS also. I brought the matter to NIPS, and we had a study group. I was in that group. We came to Ajaokuta on a formal visit, and then in our position paper to the president, we made the presentation to the president of Nigeria that there was a need to complete Ajaokuta Sea. But even if they are not completing, operationalize those that can be operationalized. On that account, when I came on the project, believe me, I will say this, whether it hurts anybody, I'm sorry. When minister took me, we went to meet to the vice president. I told him, it's possible for us to build our own tracks in Ajaokuta. That way, even the cost of freight alone, freight of the tracks is more than what we would have spent to build these tracks in Nigeria. And I suggested additionally that if you look at even the development of the rail system in the whole world, they use labor, they use manual labor. All those underground, people will use blacks. When they did radio in Nigeria, the history of Nigeria, people volunteered, strong men in communities volunteered. So if you don't know it's talking to your community, the king will volunteer young men who were strong, and they were helping to excavate. A lot of it was done, it's not technology. They used manual labor, donated manual labor. So I said, you can revert that even now. When we revive it, we have a large number of young men, energetic, brilliant, who are unemployed in all the states. We have already a railway program.
Some of them are engineers.
Many of them. We have a railway program for Nigeria already. Why don't we say, no, we must produce a track in Ajaokuta so the cost comes down. Then we now say, get teams. We have a national consultant, they have zonal consultants and state consultants. The main job of the consultants will be to make sure that we will align the rail tracks so that if you are working in Anambra, for instance, and somebody working in Imo, and somebody is working in Enugu, while you are working there without direct contact with Enugu or Anambra, your lives will be on the same alignment. The technology abounds. And those will be doing Kogi and all those things. So you have this work going on simultaneously, and the cost of it will be more than what we are paying to do even Abuja alone, or to do Lagos Kano. That same money that we are investing, we could use it to do this mass action, we mobilize youths, those in all professions, because when this work is not only engineers, there are all manners of work that come into. So we suggested that. Immediately, I said it because you know when I finished making my presentation, you didn't answer me.
That was when?
You didn't answer. I don't. So when you didn't answer, then the minister said, "Sir, this person talking is not just a civil servant, that is also a past president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers." You still didn't answer. So we left there I was not personally very disappointed. But so now the problem is, why do we have this happening in Nigeria?
Okay. I mean, it is part of the reason why we have this topic. Why should this continue? Nations have grown. We know the Asian tigers. We learned that in the 70s we are at par with them in terms of development. But today we baptize them with Asian tigers because of what they've been able to do. They've revolutionized the system, and today they're ahead of us. We're not learning from them. Let's return to Kaduna, where we have the Executive Vice Chairman of NASENE, Professor M.S. Haruna. So I've been privileged to see some of the institutes under NASENE, where we have a good bunch of Nigerian engineers and scientists who are churning out several products. In fact, I have lost count of the number of products that I've seen in those research institutes. So we have the SEDI Oka, SEDI MENA, LD Oka, SEDI Enugu, we have LD in Akure, we have HEDI in Kano. These are research institutes that embark on different projects, and I've seen over 100 products from across all these research institutes. But then what worries me is that these major machinery churned out by Nigerian engineers in NASENE are yet to be commercialized to a point where the ordinary Nigerian will begin to enjoy, a technology, a homegrown technology, which we know exists in NASENE today. What can be done to actualize commercialization, to bring the attention of the big wigs in terms of big pockets to invest in those products that NASENE is churning out? How can it be done? How can it be done?
Nigerian, thank you very much. And you can excuse me if I don't hear you fully, because we are having some network challenges. But I will attempt to answer the way I understood. I didn't hear you all the things you said. And at the end, allow me to round off discussion on Ajakuta steel that was discussed earlier by my senior professional colleagues. The challenge of taking already developed products to the market, particularly those of standard that can be directly deployed, the first and most challenging issue is absence of venture capital. Anyone who wants to take your product to the market has challenge of how to source fund in order to establish a manufacturing plant or a line that will do that. There is this issue of also the dislike for homegrown products by Nigerians, a lack of enforcement of consumption of local products. Usually we prefer to go outside. In fact, you can make a product locally, can make it in Nigeria, in Aba, in any way, and say it is made in Japan, and people will pay higher for it than when they know it's made in Nigeria. However, the solution we have adopted is that from day one, to do need-oriented, market-driven research, and our approach these days is that to have a private sector from day one to do the research together, to agree to develop the product of what is believed is needed in the market, and that is yielding result. We have major companies such as Nigerian Machine Tools, Oshogbo, Inoson Motors, the car manufacturers, and also even armored equipment manufacturers from Propos, for example. We jointly commence research. There are many others in different areas. From day one, we partner to develop the products and agree on profit sharing. And in that case, you can be sure of the market from the beginning. But the attitude of Nigerians to Nigerian products is a thing of concern. However, even elsewhere, what they do is to enforce and close their borders that so-so product is available in Nigeria, or discourage by paying so much import duty on it so that it is cheaper. No one has not closed his border to a certain extent to support local manufacturing. India, for example, you must use products, vehicle produced locally. You cannot afford to import elsewhere because of prohibitive cost. If I may contribute also to the challenges of discussed earlier by my senior colleagues on Ajaokuta, I think the problem is that from the beginning, there have been a conspiracy, since international conspiracies, of course. The steel development studies was carried out by a Russian company, and at the end of the day, Russians were given the contract to develop Ajaokuta. Now the West criticized that. Earlier on, it was criticized that Nigeria should concentrate on agricultural development and forget about steel, because it is known that once Nigeria can have steel development, have it right, get it correctly in development of steel sector, with the ingenuity and creativity of Nigerians, nothing will stop Nigeria becoming a manufacturing economy. So the West came and said, no, it is too expensive to use traditional method. The Russian technology is an olden days, nobody uses it. We'll give you what they call direct reduction. Now, as we are developing Ajaokuta, the Germans came in a consortium with Australia with funds as loan from Deutsche Bank to say, go and develop Delta Steel. We'll give you a faster method in which the products, steel development can be easier, and modern technology. Now today, Ajaokuta is not completed, Delta is not completed, or Alaja steel complex as it is called. Now all this from the beginning, they commence production of steel development from the end products, rather than using the raw materials, the iron ore abundant in Nigeria, to develop our steel sector. Russia started by importing billets. Yes, as His Royal Majesty Otis has illustrated, medium section mill, light section mill, and the foundry and the tools shop were completed. I was there, I worked there briefly. However, the raw material to do this are coming from outside, from Russia. It's not sustainable. The billet mill where the processed iron ore will have been used to produce the raw material required for the direct manufacturing of this was not completed. In fact, it was not commenced. The commencement of establishment of the rolling of the billet mill was not commenced until around 1984-85. Again, that of Alaja was also based on importation of finished billets. In fact, the level of development in Ajaokuta is even better than that one. Now, Nigeria was serving the loan that we assessed from Deutsche Bank to develop Alaja. It was not completed, and you can be sure the loan has to be continued to be paid with huge interest. So that is the first challenge. None would have been sustainable. And of course the solution now is that I have used the machine shop of Jakarta Steel as explained by Engineer Otis. When I went to Okene to start off the Nasenis Power Equipment and Electrical Machinery Development Institute, what assisted me was because of my knowledge of what is there in Ajakuta. Before we can have our PACE workshop in Okene, some products were already coming out, specialized transformer and some switch gears in the power sector. We actually produced them in the workshop using the facilities that were abandoned in Ajakuta, that we took lease for 2 years to commence before our own workshop in Okene can commence. So as at today, it is possible to operate 3 very important mills in Ajakuta. I'm telling you, Naseni has also applied to have one of these mills and operate by importing billet for now from Guinea, from Algeria. They have the finest iron deposit in the world, and they are exporting it to the European nations. We can operate that because what is limiting our impact in the production of machinery and equipment and plant is the absence of a performing steel industry. So today, if we are producing any machine, we recycle scrap metal, scrap iron. That's what we do to produce liquid iron, and through our molding process produce different shape. There is a limitation, there is a limit. If you are involved in the design of machine, you shouldn't be bothered with how to produce the iron. You should just give your specification and sizes to a steel manufacturing facility to produce that for you. Getting steel industry is a must. To get Ajakuta and Alaja operating and the other rolling mills across the nation, Josti rolling mill, Kasina sewing mill, and so on and so forth. We need them back to operation. Until we have that, the challenges of manufacturing things locally will continue. I'll give you an example. Recently we had a design for smokeless efficient stove. We needed some flat steel, some aluminium. We don't have any factory to produce that. Those things are produced for us by a partner in Germany. They are simple process. And because no steel industry is a mere process of giving them, here is our design. So the way forward is not to say we want to complete Ajakuta steel by developing other component of it that are not completing. The first step is to get the mills that are operated, the workshop, the foundry, and the power plant for steel that are completed and tested and operated before in 81 to 85. Let those areas commence operation. We can even import the billets now from the neighboring, from the African countries that have resources on this, while we now ensure that Itafe, where the iron ore process to get iron required to Ajakuta can be boosted. We can even export while gradually completing this. However, government must do this through a PPP arrangement. Our recommendation and imagination is that government should not own more than 30% of what is there. The government must complete everything first before creating, because across the globe, no private sector on its own venture into steel development. It is always with the hands of government involved in doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed, it is a collective responsibility, government coming together, including the international community. Let me come back here to the studio where His Royal Highness Engineer Igwe Otis is seated. Do you have an up-to-date policy in the area of science and technology in Nigeria that can help drive the department itself?
Oh, certainly. We have the policy, national policy on science and engineering infrastructure. It's been there since 1992.
Is it functional?
Well, it can be functional if you don't release the funds that you need to make it functional. So if you say it's functional, maybe you say since last year, when government started releasing the money. Then you have what used to be the National Science and Technology Policy, that is now changed to Science, Technology and Innovation, policy that was brought in place, I think shortly before Dr. Bonayono came, and then he now wrapped it up and actually wanted to.
There was a later one.
Yes, that supposed to have an innovation council. So they are there. But if you just put things on paper, even if they were designs, detailed designs, and they are on paper, and you do not bring the money to actualize them, then again it comes to nothing. So it is there. And let me just say something. Following what the EVC mentioned on Ajokuta and Delta Steel. In 2017, we made a plan of how to convert that medium section and structural mill to make rail. We worked with the Ajokuta Steel Company management and determined that what you needed to do that would be about 700 and something billion naira. And that if you do it PPP, even with those Chinese, what the government will need to bring, when you factor in the already existing investment, the government will not bring more than about 100 billion of that amount, and the rest will come from the private sector. And for the next 10 years, you make a profit of 85 billion every year. So in 10 years, you are going to get 850 billion profit if you did that. Now on Delta Steel, the biggest technological breakthrough they have made in Nigeria so far was in that Delta Steel. Because of this lack of technological base, the people who designed it said that our iron ore is not good and that we have to import iron ore from Venezuela and some other places.
But is that true?
Well, I'm coming. So the Metallurgical Research Center in Jos worked and was able to show that our Etape ore can be beneficiated to even higher, because I think what they need is about 68% ferrous. What we have usually from Etape might be 65 or something like that, but they have been able to get it to that 68 and above. And so successfully used it in the direct reduction plant. When they did that, the next year they closed the place. And you were talking of 1.8 million tons of iron ore every year. So you can imagine, if you find the current cost of iron ore 1 ton, 1.8 million tons they needed every year, you will see the savings we would have made right here in Nigeria.
All right, so we're going to pause you there, and perhaps we're going to go on break. But when we return, we'll delve into some of these issues that we raised. But before that break, please, because we're talking about policy, my colleague raised the issue of policy.
Yeah.
You know, which of course we know exists. We have policy, national policy on science and technology. That has never been the case. What has been the case is the implementation of the policies, and that's where I want the former current president to come in here. You know, this is a country where we have, for instance, let's say cars. Nigerians, most Nigerians are car crazy, if you like. I mean, we buy all manner of cars. There are cars you can't even identify, you know, the brand, and I'm not sure any of them has assembly plant. No talk of, you know, production plants in the first place. I mean, I know that in China and other countries of the world, if you have to sell your products in China, you have to have a manufacturing plant in China. For instance, so importing finished products into China or elsewhere where such policies exist is not possible. But here, we import virtually every kind of car in the country. No policy on that. That's number one. Number two is the fact that the policies that have existed over the years do not point to the fact that Nigerian artisanal technicians are never taken into cognizance in any plan of government, except now that Maseni has just triggered, you know, the training of some artisanal technicians across Nigeria. Just in 1 minute before we go on break.
Well, the problem is these policies that we're talking about is not something that we invented, as it were. The world was moving at that time. Even China was below the equator, as it were. Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, they were all at that level. And there was a need to propel themselves. So this thing started like a revolution within Asia and Africa. The Nigeria kingdom. So that is the same policy that created Nasemi, that created Siri in Malaysia and many other things in all the other places that propelled them to what they are today. We just didn't use our own policy. And they have been upgraded, you know. Before I came, I was having a meeting. I'm personally involved in some of the activities in Asia Pacific engineering councils, and they had to say, let's take some decisions. Korea became proud of their own product. They refused to allow anybody bringing anything. Malaysia, all these countries, this is the problem. Even China, they restricted influx of unnecessary goods that could be produced in country. This is what we are also going to do. But somehow, for whatever reason, we decided to step back and allow even those countries, because today those countries will begin to import. Because I remember there's a car, Proton, in Malaysia. I've seen somebody who told me how to Proton in Nigeria, which is something that we shouldn't even allow. As friendly as that country is, we shouldn't allow products from there. We have been importing from these people that I'm speaking of. No, we want to even bring in our own friends again, our commerce in arms, to take users as a dumping ground. So our real problem is we must love our country a bit more. You talk about everywhere in the world. When you want to change, you want to develop internally, you close your borders. You close the borders by you disallow unnecessary goods into your country, and then you produce and use what you can produce. What you cannot produce, you don't necessarily need them. And that is what it was. That is, all these things are there. If you check go to the policy, that is what the direction is. But nobody implements it. Such. And this arises from me, I think it's a lack of patriotism, fueled by ignorance and some wickedness also. Because otherwise, why would you see a good thing? Because even in our homes, there are sometimes you tell your child that he cannot believe this. If a child always going to the neighbor's house to go and see certain things that you know that you won't take anything out of it. He doesn't hear or he doesn't see. You can say no. From today we are not living. We stay here. We be together. We eat what we have here. So why can't we do it at national level?
National level, and implementation is key in every policy in Nigeria. We'll take a break. When we return, our conversation.
Network service. And of course, we are discussing fast-tracking national development through science, technology, and innovation. We have three big guests, who have had experience in this sector that you cannot quantify in Naira and Kobo. These are intellectuals in science and technology who have also played key roles in trying to develop this sector. Gentlemen, talking about phone now, we are discussing off camera about telephone. Nigeria is one of the highest consumers of that product across the globe, but what that we cannot perhaps do ours. But I want to tell you something. Royalty is royalty on energy. In Natcomsat, for instance, here at Airport Road here, I have known some engineers who can make this telephone. Young lady and young man, you two, they can configure the phone and make a call with it in your presence. They were in China, were trained in China. When the Dutch contract was relaunched in 2011, with a right commentary on via CCTV, it's a power pack kind of a satellite. Because of the earlier one that failed, they fortified it. But again, what about the utilization of that satellite in Nigeria? So these are some of those things that we're talking about, negligence or ignoring a sector that can change the course of our history. Now, let me talk about the role of Nigerian engineers in the construction of major infrastructure in Nigeria. We have the big-time multinational, companies who are doing major construction. We've just finished the second Niger bridge and major, bridges and roads across Nigeria. What has been the role of Nigerian engineers in this aspect of national development, which is a place where we believe you people could, do something totally different? They are not allowed to play a role in that sector.
What are the bottlenecks stopping it from going on?
Thank you. It is again the same political will to trust and realize that it is basically the responsibility of the government to develop Nigerian expertise and capability. And it was on in the First Republic, even from colonial times. In the north, there was at least there were one or two contractors that the government developed to be able to do some of their contracts. In the west, you had Lakija and Lakija. In the east, you had people like Marco, you had Oji and Okoye, and so on. And it's so relevant that we look at what happened in the building of the University of Nigeria.
Super.
Yes, if you went there, especially the hostels, the old hostels, they all looked alike. But they were built by different contractors, Nigerian contractors. And these things happened before 1960. They built it to open it in 1960. And it was Nigerian contractors that did that. Now, these contractors lived in this country until they saw the judge that ought to come to them being given to girlfriends of those in power. And then all those companies
went down.
So it is the duty of the government to nurture capacity in that and then export it. Because you see, all these foreign companies that come here, their government support them. If they come, you don't pay them for 1 year, they don't mind. Their government, they support them, and of course they take it out in pricing. We have done a plant, the aluminium plant, for example. When the contractors were being, tossed up and down, one of them, in annoyance, told some of our people that were negotiating with them told them that, look, that they have not finalized this thing, but that they have been paid their down payment, and that they have made their money. So if we like, we can keep dragging. And you know what that means? The down payment couldn't have been, maybe there was no due process at that time, couldn't have been more than 25% or something. And they were sure that they are okay. If you want to conclude everything, fine. If you don't want to conclude, they can actually pack and go.
Because they've been paid up front.
Yes.
Oh, on that, let's bring in Professor Muhammad Haruna, Executive Vice Chairman, National Agency for Science and Technology. You know, considering the role science and technology plays, you know, in Nigeria, how imperative is it to stimulate, you know, demand from both private and public sectors in Nigeria? So the question to you, Engineer Kashi, how imperative is it to stimulate demands, you know, request demands from both the private and public sectors in Nigeria in the area of science and technology?
Okay, let me start with the good side of this. I mean, let me look at the sunny side of implementation of economic policies in Nigeria. With what has happened to Nigeria, because we don't acknowledge it, to have seen that it's all stories of dream. What has happened to Nigeria now has opened a vista for the private sector to work with the public sector. How? By the concept of the Nigeria, we are supposed to have develop infrastructure. Like now, let me use an example. You want to build, I didn't use build at that time, and then you need to do the machines that will build it, right? So the interest of the public is to have a brewery, but you don't have the machines. Instead of going back to the old failed import substitution method, you now develop those machines in country. When you finish, you design and construct them. The public sector will come as an optical. Take these machines and use and manufacture, and the people make money, and people are happy. This is applicable to all other sectors. So that is the whole essence. So now there are institutes. The thing has about, initially they had 10, they are even trying to increase the number to about 16 and more now. Those institutions are supposed to develop, and they are working hard now. They do research and development. And whatever products they develop are to be made available, and some of them are available. So I want to maybe use this video to maybe promote Nigeria products, that public, those who are interested in products, can now go to Nigeria Institute nearest to them and find out what are you producing. What are you producing that could be useful to me? Because they are produced, they were the first to in fact, LED bulbs. They were standard, some bulbs they developed for Nigeria because they know our own way of doing things that were a bit hard on whatever we hold. They developed a bulb that will fall down from 3 meters and not break. They developed that. So people could use it, could be used for poor communities. They are cheap, but when they fall down, when you send your child to go and buy a bulb, even if you fall down on the way, it will not break. So we have those things. We have also, there are other things that are more like security products that are being manufactured in Sedimina, for instance, that the armed forces will be interested in. So people should now begin to go to Nigerian institutes, Sedimina, Sedi Enugu, Pemadi in made in Oka, so all the businessmen in Inewi should begin to go to Medina to ask, what can you do for us? Ask them, this is what I want to do this for. So that is the whole concept. That's what was done all over the world where we copy these things from. When we create these institutes, people go there to ask questions, ask us, can you do this for us? They can't do. You can't do it here, but you can do it in some place. You go there and do it. Yeah, that's how we can bring about national development. So we are grateful, as a board of engineers, we are grateful to the president, this particular president, for bringing alive myself after 32 years. 32
years.
To bring it alive. Because you can imagine where would have been if we started 32 years ago. To fund and guide it properly. Because there was a minister of science and technology. The ministry was collapsed into Maseni. It shows you the significance of Maseni. And anyway, when you have this kind of organization, the president or the prime minister is the chairman. But in Nigeria, we reversed it. We made the minister, under the minister, then we changed the title to DG, which is all without even affecting any changes to the law. Can you see how lawless we are? This side that something is happening, this has to be sustained. The problem of living is having overload. It's a chapter that will be right on Maseni. Because without science, technology, and innovation, Nigeria will not go anywhere.
Yes, sir. Thank you indeed. When we talked about research institutes under Maseni, about 10 and even more springing up in about 12 or 13 now, right? And as a matter of fact, LD Oka province, you talked about security gadgets. Just for Nigerians to know this, they have a gadget in that LD where if you install it in your house, and maybe members of the family, everybody goes out, and have one phone number linked to that gadget. If anything happens to your house, any time before any of you comes back, you get alert and information to those 5 phones held by the members of the family. I saw it in LD. Okay. He says, so these are some of the things that we've seen. But now, let's talk to Professor Haruna once more for us to conclude this. Now, you and I had a discussion on the manufacture of defense equipment in Nigeria, the possibility of producing defense equipment in Nigeria. You and I as well in Indonesia saw it live, where the armed forces, the air force are all churning out products, aircrafts, machine guns, AK-47, AK-49, and all manner of products that are churning out there in the military of that country. Now, how can that be domesticated here? With the little connection that we have, the possibility of having a kind of nexus between these all the armed forces to team up for the manufacture of defense equipment in Nigeria.
That has already commenced. The domestication of defense equipment in Nigeria has commenced. The Naseni working with DICON, working with the Ministry of Defense on the directives of President Muhammadu Buhari. Also, Naseni's partnership with Nigerian Machine Tool Oshogbo and purpose industry. There are certain things we have started production to a certain level, and things are going on. Is it up? Because now it's ringing. Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. So I can tell you that this has commenced. Okay, I said the development of defense equipment in Nigeria has commenced. But the reason why you are not seeing it everywhere is because of the security aspect of it. But I'm telling you, some machine guns, some anti-aircraft guns has commenced. Even armored personnel carrier, mine-resistant, anguish-protected APC are being reverse engineered. and there is a boost and support and directives of Mr. President to have this manufacture locally.
Okay. Well, all right, Professor Haruna, we would like to thank you indeed for your contribution this morning and waking up with us in Kaduna there to be part of this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you indeed. Professor Mohammed Sani Haruna is the Executive Vice Chairman of the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. He reached us all the way from Kaduna. Thank you once again. And here in Abuja, we had the privilege of hosting His Royalty Otis Oliver Anyeji, Obi-Ono the second of Okija, traditional head of Obaho Okija community, former president, Nigerian Society of Engineers, and former consultant to the federal government on Ajokuta Steel Company and a larger steel complex. We also had the privilege of hosting engineer Kashimali, former president, Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for coming.
Thank you. I was in NSC too.
The chairman of the Science Equipment Development Institute.
Chairman. Okay, all right, sir.
Well, on that note, that's been Good Morning Nigeria for today. Join us again tomorrow for another insightful edition of the program. I am Jumai Yusuf.